In this video, we're going to look at the basics of the environment component. More specifically, we're going to look at the background, fog and ambient settings, particles, and sound settings. So let's get started. I'm starting from a scene that I created from another video, which was the basics of lights and camera. All that I have here is a box and a disc, and then I added a directional light. Directional lights, if you remember, act like sunlight, so they shine from a distance that is infinitely far away. So you can start here, you can add some stuff into your scene if you want, or you can just follow along. All right, the environment component is only attached to the top level or scene level entity. So if I select disk, for example, there's no environment component here or directional light or anything. You'll never see environment component on anything other than the entity that's at the very top level, which is your entire scene. Because environment settings have to do with the global settings of your scene. All right, so if I have it selected, it's actually already unfolded here, is the environment settings. So along with your AWS configuration, your document, post effects, that's where you'll find the environment. And we are not going to be looking at Skybox today, or in this video. We will look at that in another video. But we were going to cover the background, fog and ambient, particles, and sound. Some pretty simple stuff. So let's unfold the background property real quick. Right now, you'll notice that the background color is set to this gray. And that's what we see over here. It's the background. So if we select this color picker and select some sort of yellow, then the background becomes yellow. And also, you'll notice that color is also reflected on the objects or the entities in our scene. And you can select the opacity for the background. So if you want a background, then you can keep it at 1. If you don't want a background, this is useful for when you're making AR applications, augmented reality applications. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. But that is background. Pretty simple. Let's return it to... Let's do kind of this greenish color. Actually, that's a little obnoxious. So let's just go back to, we'll undo it, go back to our gray. Where was our gray? There it is, okay. All right, sky box and sky spheres we will be skipping for now. Fog and ambient. The ambient setting on a global scale, if you've looked at seen any of our tutorials that have to do with material settings, ambient is the color of an entity when it is in shadow. So it is really an entity's darkest dark. So how dark can an entity get? Most of the time that's set to very dark because if there's no light shining on it, you want it to not reflect any light. So that's the way ambient works. And so you can set that on a global scale as well. So we typically keep this set to dark if you want it to reflect the real world. Fog is another interesting setting. We'll look at this real quickly. It adds fog into your scene. As you move away, you'll notice that it starts getting a little bit white. Everything's becoming very white. That's because it's becoming covered in fog and everything is being blocked by this fog property. If I set this at 20, that means that when I am far at 20, what am I trying to say? 20 meters or 20 units in front of my camera, everything was going to be transparent or opaque. So as I move forward, things become a lot more clear. Now, so I can still see it, but it's getting fairly dark or fairly opaque. Your fog near reflects how close from the camera it starts. And so if we select this at 5 or even 10, then you notice that things get a lot more clear the closer you are. So a lot of times, 100 is a good setting. And maybe 5 for the not fog far, fog near. One rule of thumb, let me get back to that. Your fog near should always be less than your fog far, as a rule of thumb. But as you notice, as we get further away, things get a little more hazy, to where when we are 100 units away from the entity, they become completely opaque and covered in fog. You notice down here, it's not quite there because that's not quite 100, but as I move away, there it is. So that's your fog setting. It does not affect the background. It only affects things in your scene. So that's why it's not making a difference to the background, this gray background. It's only to entities within your scene. All right, that's fog and ambient. Particles, right now there is only one option for this. If you select this, this is snow, and so it'll actually mimic snow falling. I'll go ahead and press play, and you'll start seeing snow falling in the scene. And if you increase velocity or rate, height, start changing some of the properties of snow falling in our scene. And lastly, sound. Sound controls the global sound settings for your scene. So if you have songs in the background, or if you have songs or sound effects in your scene, that's what the setting will control. All right, so that's your environment. It controls a lot of the global settings affecting your scene. There are some more specifics, especially Skybox and Skysphere, which is what we will get to in the next video. So thanks for watching. That's it.